So here we are at Callanish as part of the all-school gathering for the Turning of the Ages Mystery School. And we have now our second special event speaker. And this is Cristina Moreira, who has been in the school now for like 12 years. She's involved with our work for about 12 years. And she was the one that organized a cosmology group in Portugal back in 2017. And it's such a pleasure to have you be able to share your latest research and speculations.
Thank you,
So-
Daniel.
so there you
You've been
are.
a wonderful
Yes.
teacher. Thank you.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your presence, and I would like to invite everyone to come into your sacred place within and take some deep breaths so we can start this journey. So, I'm going to be sharing with you about my passion that is researching about the mysteries. And I come from a very, very old place. Portugal is the oldest country in Europe that has the same defined borders since the early 1100s. So it's a very old, it's a country with more than 900 years old. It's a very ancient culture. And of course, there's a lot of story even much further back then. Um, and a little bit about myself. So, I was born in Lisbon. I, since a very young age, I was very intrigued by the documentaries on the pyramids of Egypt and Machu Picchu, and then in college I studied music, and then I graduated in tourism and cultural heritage because I wanted to travel the world and go to all these mysterious, sacred, ancient places. And when I was still in college, the themes I would choose to work upon would be like the Megalithic culture in Portugal, or I just wanted to go the furthest back in time I could. And and I studied a lot of the conventional history on civilization, both the Portuguese civilization and European civilization, but that was not enough for me. So I also always had great interest in astrology since I was a teenager. Um, and in 2010, I decided to go for certification. So I did get certified with a school also in the States. And then in 2012, I found Daniel's school. And I took almost all the courses, and I've been passionate about this paradigm for a really long time. And yeah, and also it goes very according to the legacy wisdom of the ancestors. And I come also from a territory where there's a great abundance of megalithic monuments. And my intention for this presentation is to bring on the connecting dots between different places in the world, and I'm going to be focusing more on the places where I've been because those are the ones that I can talk from a perspective of a physical experience. I was recently in March and April, I was traveling through Egypt and then Turkey. So I'm going to bring a bit of that area of the world, but then also Iberia, mainly Portugal, and then up to Ireland and Scotland. And I'm going to bring in the clues that I've been finding that connect these places. And well, this is the direct message from the ancestors that we can still touch and see and feel. Because as you all know, history has been rewritten so many times, erased and rewritten, and it's a bit difficult to keep track. We're gonna be traveling through space and time. So, by the way, this image is in Portugal. It's a man here. A man here is a standing stone, and yeah, I just found it beautiful that this picture had the Milky Way aligned with the standing stone because well, I'm gonna be traveling not just through this plane, but maybe through other planes. So just bear with me. So first question: how really old is human civilization? So academia has this very strong doctrine, like Vils was sharing yesterday, that human civilization started about 6,000 years ago in ancient Sumeria, and that before that humans would be primitive nomadic hunter-gatherers. And this is really a strong doctrine. Like I said, and we know history has been erased and changed over the years. With the French Revolution, a lot of history was erased and rewritten. Then in the 20th century, with the Rockefeller doctrine, and especially at the time of World War II, that it was imposed that people should be hard workers and valued for that and not have time to think or be creative. And that is the conditioning that is still happening in the school system all over in the Western world, and it became pretty dogmatic. So when we try to follow the clues that take us to ancient civilizations that were highly developed and go much further back in time than 6,000 years, like academia really falls on you, and especially the archaeological world. So we're gonna just really go over that. And I'm going to start with some of the most obvious clues that some of you will know, but others might not know. So, uh, this was, I took these pictures when I was just there in March. The Sphinx in Giza, that is the second pyramid, and this is the body of the Sphinx. So they try to put all this in the last 5,000 year span, but it just doesn't make any sense. So in the 1990s, John Anthony West he came up with this theory that makes a lot of sense about the Giza alignments of the pyramids and the Sphinx. And he invited Robert Schoch, who is a very renowned geologist, to come to Giza. And Robert Schoch didn't know anything about anything. It just was invited to go there and analyze the markings on the body of the Sphinx, which we can see on this side, because John Anthony West was convinced that those were water markings. So Robert Shaw came and he said, "Oh yeah, for sure, these are water markings from very intense rainfall." Okay, so the last time that rained in that area of the world that could cause this type of markings would have been at least 12,000 years ago. So he was actually persecuted by academia for bringing this up, but he was just, from his trained eyes as a geologist, he was just sharing what he was seeing, and it was so evident, right? So after that time, many things have been being uncovered. Also, if we look at the Sphinx, that head is not the original head. In proportion to the body of the Sphinx, this head is so much smaller. So most possibly, the original head of the Sphinx would be the head of a lioness, and she is the guardian. She's the guardian of the Akashic records. She's facing exactly due east at the sunrise at the vernal equinox. So she's been witnessing the precessional cycle and the turning of the ages. Also, her body is so much more eroded than the head, that reveals that head must have been carved by a pharaoh, which we don't, by his people. But it's not the real head of the Sphinx, and that is the first sense that we have when we get there. So, the Great Pyramids of Giza are aligned with the star belt of Orion. We have the stars Mintaka, Animan, and Amitak on top. But it's not just the pyramids of Egypt that have these alignments, like the pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico. They're also aligned with the star Orion. So when the Sphinx was facing the lion constellation, because she would have this lioness body, she's the guardian of the Sphinx and the Akashic records. So when she was facing the lion constellation at the vernal equinox sunrise, and we know that it was 12,000, 13,000 years ago. But that's not just the alignment that we're going to be speaking about. So this alignment of the pyramids with Orion's belt, also from inside the pyramids. So far, what's been found, there might be more. We have the subterranean chamber, then we have the queen's chamber, and then the king's chamber. So there are shafts. They're called star shafts that emerge from these chambers, and the one from the king's chamber is aligned with the Orion's belt, and the one coming out of the queen's chamber is aligned with Sirius. And for ancient Egyptians, which they were not Egyptians, they were the Kemetic people. Kemet is the ancient name of Egypt. Orion would represent Osiris, and his name is not Osiris, it's Ozar. So the Greeks did change all the names. They did change the names of the gods and the places. Okay. So one shaft coming out of King's Chamber pointing to Orion's belt, from Queen's Chamber to Sirius, that represents Isis, that is Ozet. And but 12,000 years ago, when these alignments were taking place, Earth were just entering the Younger Dryas. That was this very impactful event that some of you know and others might not, which was an anomalous period of about 1,200 years, if I'm not mistaken, that started around 11,600 or 800 years ago and went until 9,000 something, 9,800 years ago approximately. That the conditions at the surface of the earth were very chaotic, they were very cataclysmic. There was fire, there was water, there were major earthquakes. For instance, the shoreline of Portugal sunk 120 meters during the Younger Dryas period. So this was really a very strong cataclysmic event. And it might not, for sure, it would not have been possible to build the pyramids and the Sphinx during that time. So maybe going back another precessional cycle of approximately 26,000 years, and we come up to what, 38,000 years ago, that maybe the pyramids and the Sphinx were built. Well, these are just possibilities because there's no written history, and we can only look at archaeoastronomy and geology. and the original names of the places, and try to find our way through this maze. Okay, I could not resist. I was in awe. This was one of the best moments in my life, that I was able to be at the Sphinx at sunrise for the vernal equinox last March. And well, it was very magical to be there and witness what's been witnessed for millennia. And that was greatly inspiring. And I have to say that changed my life, and really inspired me also to put up all this material together and be able to share it. So I'm just going to add some mystery facts about the Great Pyramid, because it's just so intriguing. So I was fortunate to be able to lie down on the sarcophagus at the King's Chamber, and that was also a very interesting experience, because I was alone there with a friend from the States, and we were able to stay inside, just the two of us, for some 10 minutes, and we both lay down on the sarcophagus, and I was already in an altered state of consciousness. The moment I entered the pyramid, I could hear the vibration. And just touching the walls, it was like very, very, very powerful energy. And then when I lay down on the sarcophagus, I immediately saw like the ceiling disappearing, and I saw this vortex over me, and I went somewhere. My consciousness was projected somewhere for some time. And then it took me a little bit of time to actually come back. So when I got out of the sarcophagus and people started to enter, and I could see them, and they were trying to talk to me, and I was just there. I could not talk to them, and I was having this feeling that I was half there and half in another dimension. So this is a very, very, very developed and mysterious technology that we don't understand what is it. We could not replicate it. We could not build something like this in our current time, and we have no idea how it was built. These buildings are massive, and like now it has about 2.3 million stone blocks, because it's been dilapidated. Originally, to be very smooth surface and shining from the distance, and each block weighs an average of 10 tons. It's just, and there's like about, originally would have been about 3 million. Stone on the ceiling of the King's Chamber weighs about 70 tons, and it's really, really up there. I mean, how did they get there? The height of the pyramid is in proportion to the distance from the Earth to the Sun, and so many other like proportions of the pyramid. Everything is just perfectly aligned. The circumference of the pyramid divided by her height, it gives us the number of pi, which is this perfect number from sacred geometry. It's aligned exactly due north, and the latitudes, it's the numbers that are on the latitudes are the numbers that are on the speed of light, but with a measure of meters by second. And also the sarcophagus on the King's Chamber is larger than the entrance into it. We have to bow to enter the King's Chamber as a sign of reverence. And the sarcophagus, which is a monolith, is larger than the entrance into it. So they will have to put it there. It's just, we can't understand those things. It's beyond our capacities. And just to have an idea of how difficult it is to move stones, this was last year in Portugal, at a festival, and the production of the festival had the intention of erecting two standing stones, and we called and I was called to help, not to raise the stones, but for like presence and moral support. So uh, we were able to gather like 100 people that were just participating in the festival, and people from all over the world. This is the Boom Festival where I always come across Levi. Levi is also always there. Is it at Boomland? Yeah, it's at Boomland. Yeah. So first we erected the masculine, and then we erected the feminine. And this took us the whole afternoon, evening. And it was really intense work just for these two stones. And there were machines that take them there. We just had to put them up. It's a lot of work and effort. So how would they do the other thing, like the gigantic monolithic monuments in ancient times, right? So this is the unfinished obelisk in Aswan in the south of Egypt, and it's like huge. It's really huge. It's one monolith, granite, red granite. The quarries in Aswan is a lot of where they were sourcing the stones to build their megalithic monuments in these very ancient times. This is 46 meters long, and it should weigh no less than 1,200 tons. And I was also thinking, and it was left unfinished. There are actually some places in Egypt and other parts of the world that they were just carving the pieces and they were left unfinished. We don't know if they had something was happening that they just had to leave it like that, or it's also a mystery. But because I had been through the experience of erecting a standing stone and we need to be at a certain angle, so it's impossible. Like there's a very tall wall here, so it could not be raised like this. So how would they even like lift it up from there and take it where it needed to go? So this is the bottom part. So they carved all the top and they would have to go underneath to carve the rest. So yeah, we have all these great mysteries from very ancient times. And also from what I felt was that there was this very developed ancient civilization there before Egypt. And the peoples that came after and all the stories with the kings and the pharaohs and all of that, they just were able to collect a lot of that ancient wisdom that they found, but they were not the original ones. So this ancient civilization, I call it the pyramids civilization because we find pyramids all over the world. And here, because the sands of the desert just covered a lot of it, these things were protected and are just popping up like crazy these times because it's time for us to remember, right? So yeah.
This thing, obelisk, is something that has been carved into the stone.
Oh yeah, this is the bedrock. It's carved into the bedrock, and it's one monolith.
And you're suggesting they would have then taken it out of there?
Oh yeah, their intention was definitely to take it out of there and lift it and take it somewhere and erect it. Yeah,
They did.
well, no, they didn't do it with this one, but they did it with many others, right?
Cristina, what do you think was what do you suspect was the motivation for these ancient peoples to find a huge rock that weighs more than anybody can handle to lift it up? I mean, what
Energy.
Yeah. Well, to connect with cosmic energy?
To connect with cosmic energy, these huge monoliths, they create a a resonance frequency around them. They're like antennas, and they connect Earth to the sky. And yeah, and the obelisks in ancient Egypt were really a big thing. This is the temple of Luxor, the temple of man, and this is one of these. It's not as big as the one that they were carving in Aswan, but still it's huge. And there were originally two. This is the base of the other one. But when the French in the 19th century, they decided to cut it down and take it to Paris. So this is the Luxor, the other Luxor obelisk that's here. And it took them 2 years just to put it down and take it to the Nile so it could be taken by boat to France. Okay.
It looks just like the Washington
Yeah.
monument.
Yeah. So this generates power, generates a frequency, but these are monoliths, right? These are monoliths. This is in the Vatican. This one comes from Heliopolis in Egypt also. This one has no carvings, but it's also from Egypt. It's working as a sundial in the Vatican. This one is in Istanbul. I was there. I saw it. I took this picture also. So these monoliths from ancient Egypt have been taken to different places in the world. And this is the Washington Monument, yes, but it's not a monolith. It's made of stone bricks, right? So it's still very imposing and powerful, but it's not a monolith. It's easier to build, right? So speaking about monoliths and standing stones, this is in Portugal. We have quite a few of these there, especially in the Alentejo area where the school was gathered in 2017. This is approximately maybe 6,000 years old, and it's really tall, also maybe like 7 meters high. And I've been coming to these observations, especially after I traveled to Egypt, that there are many influences from this ancient, I'll call it Kemetic. I found many evidences and clues from structures that I saw in Egypt in the territory where I live, including the standing stones. They really resemble like a remembrance of these ancient obelisks from ancient Egypt. They seem to serve the same purpose. And there we have Daniel. um, they seem to serve the same purpose. So it's like these people somehow they were just remembering what their legacy from their ancestors was and trying to replicate it. This is what I'm honestly been feeling into. So, and some still have carvings, but because they've been exposed to the environment, these carvings are very, very faded. And these stones are like at least 7,000 years old. So they're very, very old. And this is the stone circle of Almendras, that's in the ancient word is called cromlech. It's the standing stone circle that has almost more than 90 stones, 90 monoliths. We were also there at the school gathering. We had the graduation happening here at the stone circle in 2017 for some of the graduates. It's aligned with the equinox sun rising, and then there are other alignments. Like this is also very interesting. Like you see this and this, so this is like a side. Okay. So this is facing exactly due east at the equinoxes at the sunrise. This stone is marking. There's a little one at the base. This is a tall stone. You have to climb to a stone and then be able to stand on top. And it's facing exactly due east. And this one is helping. But then if you go further into the distance, there's the city of Évora, which is a very old city. And where it's pointing exactly, it's where the cathedral, the medieval cathedral of Évora is in the distance. And so, for sure, in ancient times, where the cathedral stands now, the cathedral was built in the 1100s. So it's very old as well. But they would build the cathedrals over the ancient pagan sacred sites that were places of worship to the goddess. But there's something nice about it is that the Cathedral of Évora is dedicated to Our Lady of O. And the Lady of O is the one with the pregnant belly. So the cathedral is dedicated to the pregnant lady, and there's a beautiful, very, very old statue of the pregnant lady inside the cathedral. So that memory is still there, which is beautiful. And this is the configuration. This one is the largest and the oldest in Portugal. It's at least 8,000 years old. and it has this strange configuration. It went through different periods of being built. And also in the middle, we have the masculines, the feminine and the masculine stones that still have some carvings with it. This one is the feminine one. That's like a womb, like this round shape or pregnant belly. And this is the masculine one, which we can still see the shape of the phallus, like we see also here. And then they have some still have carvings. And then something that also came to my mind, and this was only after the journey to Egypt, is that there's a very common design that we find in these very ancient stones in Iberia, at least in Portugal, because in Spain there are also many. That is this shape here that looks like the shepherd's staff. And I was intrigued, and this important. It's called the baculum. And if we see I mean, what could this be? Okay, why so many stones in so many different places have this shape? And it could be the tail of the scorpion, yes, but it could also be something else. And what I found after I was in Egypt, it resembles the staff of Osiris. So Osiris has a staff exactly like this. And in these days, the Pope still uses a shaft like this. So this is again another clue that leads me to believe by intuition that there were influences from ancient Egypt or from ancient Kemetic people that were replicated after, and this is 8,000 years old, so it's also very old. But there are these mysterious connections with the ancient Kemetic people that I've been finding, and are very mysterious. You need to go really to these places and feel them to make these connections and start questioning. So this is another structure that I found to be very similar, and I could not believe it. On the right, this is in Portugal, in Sintra. Sintra is the mountain of the moon. And this is a very special magical place. This is called the Well of Initiation. And this is very old. It was redone in the I mean these parts here were redone 1 century ago, but the well was already there. And this well is not a well for connecting water. It has this spiral staircase that take us down to the underworld. And then there are tunnels. You go inside the earth, inside the mountain. The whole mountain is full of tunnels. So people would go through this process of initiation in complete darkness. And then it actually connects. One of the connections leads to another well of initiation, like this, but smaller. And then there are other ways to go out. One of them takes us to a lake where there are stones just like at the surface, and you can walk on the stones, and it feels like you're walking on the water. So there was this rite of purification through the water after emerging from the underworld. And this whole place is a very mysterious place. It's very enigmatic, full of very incredible things. But everything is registered at the municipality. Very, very old records, like since the 1100s. But the shaft, these wells, they don't show up there. So they were from much older times, and they were just readapted into new rites of initiation, in particular by the Knight Templars when they got here also on the 12th century. But they don't show up on the designs, on the plans of the municipality, so they are much older. So this is in Egypt. This is the Temple of Colombo, and it's exactly the same type of structure that we have a well that is meant for initiation purposes. It's not for collecting water. It also has a tunnel that goes underground where it faces all the fears. And it's also connecting to a smaller well that is similar but smaller. I couldn't believe it. Like, really, like, wow, it's exactly the same. So another connection that I found. This is the well of initiation going up. So as above, so below. We have the spiral going down, and then if we go up the staircase, it's this amazing stone masonry that also leads us to connects us to the celestial world.
Cristina,
Yes.
did you find this connected? Because it seems it connects with the symbol that's it's found in all of nature, the spiral of the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah. Yeah. This place is a lot about sacred geometry and the powers of the elements, the relationship of the elements. And this place is not just this well there, but it's the well. This well is very meaningful, and it was the connection that I made with Egypt. And this well is much older than all the other things. Going back to Egypt, I was looking for anomalies. I was looking for unexplainable things. And my last days there, I went to the Cairo Museum. And by the way, they're building this gigantic museum at Giza, but it's still not open. But still, the museum at Center Cairo still has a lot of things. And this is one of the mystery things that I came across. It's an unfinished sarcophagus. It's made out of red granite from Aswan. So Aswan is like 300 kilometers south of Cairo, going down the Nile. And in my opinion, and not just my opinion, these sarcophagus, they were not meant, at least the stone ones, they were not meant to serve as burial things, because they would carve the sarcophagus, and this is not one of the biggest, but it's still very big. They would carve them perfectly, like 90-degree angles. They would carve them to perfection from one monolith. And the lid was cut from the back, and it had to be from the same stone. They would always carve the lid from the same stone, which means their intention was to create a resonant field. A field of resonance, so it had to have the stone had to have the same properties. And they were cutting this one, and I guess maybe the lid broke. We don't know. It was left unfinished also. And I was going around, and it's a big thing. And how were they cutting it if they would not have power tools? I mean, granite, together with basalt and andesite and gneiss, the stone we have here, it's one of the hardest rocks. And I live in the granite area. My house is made of granite. It's so hard. I've been seeing the locals trying to shape the stones, and it's really, really hard work. So how would they do this? But it looks like this was being cut like butter. And this surface is so polished that you can see your reflection in it. It's just crazy. Yeah, so I was around it and just seeing, wow, how would they cut this? Like, so they would cut it from the top and from down, and yeah, just very mysterious. And other anomalies that I saw there. So they have this section with pottery, and in the middle of the pottery, that is made of clay and very rustic, we find these objects that are made of stone, like alabaster or other stones. And this is stone. And this is also cut to perfection. I mean, how do they carve these things? These are completely perfect geometric circles, and this is stone. So these objects were found in the tombs of like very high rank priests together with clay pots and other things. So this contributes to the theory that the people from ancient Egypt, they just found remains of a very ancient and very developed civilization, and some were able to keep these objects that no one knows what they are, and they were including in their tombs. I have a friend that is a mechanical engineer, and he actually said, when I what do you think this is? And oh, it looks like a propeller. What is it? Okay, okay. Well, we don't know what is it. Yeah, the decoration of the museum is really not well done. Like, they're putting these objects together with others that have nothing to do because they're trying to put in everything in this 5,000-year span. So some other objects. This is also stone carved to perfection. And this was an idol that was different from all the others. And so I also included it here because it looks like a star being to me. I mean, what could it be? And it's different from the other type of imagery we see there. So this is another very mysterious place. It's called the Serapeum. And the Serapeum is a system of tunnels and galleries underground. And it's all carved into the rock, into the bedrock. And they have in these chambers they have 24 sarcophagus, and some are also granite and some are andesite, like the hardest stones. And there are 24 of these, and these are huge. They're huge. And they're carved to perfection, like perfect 90-degree angles. The lids would they're just so smooth, everything, the edges, everything. But then they have these anomalies. Some of them have these anomalies, like these scoops. And I was looking at, what are those scoops? And it's not all of them, but some have them. And it just felt like, like Swiss cheese has this, when liquid gets into solid states, and sometimes there are these bubbles. That's how it feels like. I mean, like, this is the proportion. And this, I'm not even on the ground, like I'm on the platform, so this was taller, and this is the lid of one of them, so you can see just the measure of it. And this particular one had this, like, anomaly also, like if it had been hit by an energetic wave that kind of created this thing, but it was still very smooth and very mysterious. And so the people that came after, they tried to make some drawings, and they're very, like, rustic. And this was made from ancient Egyptians, but I mean, it was so hard for them to just carve these drawings. But how could this been, like, carved itself? And there are 24 of these, and there's actually one that stood in the middle of the corridor. So as it was being transported to place, again, something happened. It was just abandoned and left there. And that one is has the shape, but it's not polished. So they will be put in place and somehow polished after. But in some of these galleries, there's like 10, 15 centimeters between the edges of the sarcophagus and the wall. So a person could not even fit there. So how would they do this? It's incredible. So this is the entrance to the Serapeum. Oh, by the way, they call it the Serapeum. They say it's the tombs of the Apis bull. So this sarcophagus, they would serve to bury the mummified bulls, but it's just bullshit. It's just trying to come, and never any bull bones were found there. Actually, they were all empty when they were found. All the lids were open with the exception of one, and that one was dynamited in the 1800s by someone. This is the entrance to the Serapeum, and this is inside the Serapeum. We find these niches also in a part of it carved into the wall. It looks kind of like the same, but this is in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean in the Azores Islands. And there are actually dolmens in the Azores Islands. And the Azores Islands are midway, a bit closer to the western coast of Europe, but almost like halfway to the east coast of the United States. So they're really remote. Like, it's a 3.5-hour flight from Lisbon to get there. So in the Azores Islands, there are also megalithic structures, and this is actually a cave that has these water basins, and they're illuminated by the light of the sun at the equinoxes and the solstices. I was not here, I mean, I've been to the island, but I only found about this more recently, so I was not here. But these structures really remind me of the ones at Serapeum, and I got to know that they also exist in the island of Malta, in the Mediterranean. Um, this is the entrance to some of these caves. This is a dolmen there also. This is the island of Pico. So these are 9 islands. They're like here around this area. This is Portugal. The Azores are here, and we have the east coast here. So they would be able to just, navigate. They were everywhere, right? And this is the mountain of Pico. It's actually an active volcano. I climbed it when I was 16, and I slept here on top. And there are these little caves, and they're meant for 2 people just to sleep there. And then there's this little peak on top, and that you go up, and you just see the sun rising and over the ocean. It's really incredible. And this island of Pico also has a very mysterious feature. So close to that mountain, there's an area that is called Magdalena. In Portuguese, it's Madalena, that means Magdalene. And it's in an area of 6 square kilometers. They've identified at least 140 pyramids. At least 140 pyramids. Some are crumbled down, some are still standing, like an average of 13 meters high, which is almost like a five-story building. And they have chambers inside, and they're in perfect alignment, also with the solstices. And some are facing the mountain, some are aligned with the solstices, and there's also remains of a ceremonial plaza in this area of the Atlantic. The island's right in the middle of the Atlantic, and they're step pyramids. So these islands, the Portuguese got there in the 1400s, and they were not inhabited. There were no people there, and this was quite an episode in 2013. I really remember this. So I was watching the news on TV. Just I was at my parents, and they had the TV on, and this was on all the news actually. So in 2013, there was this sailor from the Azores, and he's is also a doctor. He's a veterinary doctor. His name is Diocleciano Silva, and he was sailing around the islands, and he was looking for a fishing bank. And he come across this is the screen of his sonar on board, and the reporters were there, and they were filming this and interviewing him, and his sonar caught this structure at the bottom of the ocean. So it's a pyramid. Um, it's 8,000 square meters. It has a height of 60 meters. It's perfectly aligned with the cardinal directions, and it's very deep in the ocean. And then 2 days after, so we gave the GPS coordinates to the Portuguese Navy, and the Portuguese Navy went there, and this is what they said. Oh yeah, it's all true, but it can only be a natural formation because the last time this area would be on the surface, I mean, it would have been like 20,000 years ago. So and human civilization in Mesopotamia didn't begin until roughly 17,000 years later. So this is not possible. So just no one they just dismissed it, and no one ever spoke about it after. It's yeah. So also the name of the Azores Island. So they say it comes from this bird that is the Azor, but there were never Azor birds on these islands. And the Portuguese that got here in the 1400s, they were the heirs of the Knight Templars. They were the ones that started the School of Navigation, and they had access to these ancient maps and manuscripts. And they'd been to Egypt also because they left their markings there. And I was wondering, I mean, who gave the name to these islands? Because there are no Azure birds there. So this was May 2022 on the Scorpio full moon eclipse day. I uh, I was added to a WhatsApp group by some friends that live in the south of Portugal, and the WhatsApp, they didn't tell me anything, just added me to this group called Cosmic Egg. And that's how I found out about the cosmic egg of Algarve. So this is a monolithic structure that was found in the 1990s in the south of Portugal, actually very close to where I live. So it was found in the place that is called Val da Lama, that translates to the Valley of Mud. And there was this farmer that was digging for a borehole on his lands, in his lands, and about like 7-8 meters deep, the drill got something, and they got it up to the surface, and it was this monolith. This monolith is like 2 meters high. It's taller. It's taller than any of us. It's the perfect shape of an egg, carved to the perfect shape of an egg, and it has three look like DNA strands carved into it, and it has been buried for at least 7,000 years, and it was so mysterious that no one had an answer for it. So it was taken to the archaeological museum, and until today it's standing there on a room that no one can visit. And many people call the museum, oh, can we go and see the cosmic egg? It's not a cosmic egg, it's a man here. And no, you cannot see it. So what? What do they say? They say it's a man here, a standing stone. But no one can see it. So there was a person from the UK, his name is Peter Doherty, and he was living there in Portugal in the 1990s when this was found. And he did get to see this because before it was hidden, and that it was very mind blowing to him. And then had to find answers. So he devoted 20 years of his life to an investigation, and he wrote a book about this. And he went through all the writings and the old writings from Plato, and the what we have today from ancient times, from ancient Egypt, of the reports of this very developed ancient civilization that would have different. I believe this civilization was all over the world, the pyramid civilization, but he found out vestiges that there would be actually a city of one of the cities of this ancient, very developed civilization in the south area of Portugal, where this egg was found, and in this description, it is said that to the north of it there were mountains. These are Plato's descriptions that he got from Solon. Solon had been to Egypt in very ancient times; they were Greek, and he met with this priest that from Egypt that was a wisdom keeper. His name was Sanchez, and he was the keeper of the temple of Sais in the delta of the Nile that was completely destroyed, and had the archive of these very old places and civilizations. It was completely destroyed. Nothing remains except these writings that Plato heard from him and then were translated. So they say that you would have to go through to find the city, and I believe there would be many others, but this particular one, you go through the Pillars of Hercules, which some people say is Gibraltar. So that's this narrow place between south of Spain and north of Africa. And there would be this really big city, very developed, and to the north of it, there would be mountains full of chestnuts and with the river streams coming down, and there was a lot of water. And this is actually the exact description of the mountains where I live and where this egg was found. And also that these very ancient people, they had this great reverence for this idol egg shaped thing that it just might represent the seeding of life or the seeding of information into DNA. We don't know. We don't know what it is. So while I was in Egypt, the mystery came back because I was with a lovely group, very conscious group, and there was a friend that I met there is actually English. And we were gathering in circle and out of the blues, and I had never mentioned anything about this to him or anyone there. He just hands me this. So it was initiated by a city master from India, and his master in India passed him this drawing and called it the cryogenic egg. And it really looks like the same. I mean, but cryogenic egg. So, well, cryogenics, they just freeze life and memory to be woken up later. So I guess it's time for us to wake up, and these messages, these very ancient messages, legacy from the ancient ones, want to come up to the surface and be revealed, because it's time for our DNA to our dormant DNA to wake up, right? So this would be a description, a design made from Plato's description of what this city, Atlantean city, would be. And this looks exactly like the mountains where I live that are full of chestnuts and have all these water streams that then come to a river that with a way to the ocean. 2 days after, I go to a friend's gathering. So this is where I live in the mountains of southwest of Portugal. And I'm talking to a friend that still uses an ancient indigenous name to this territory. And he has land here in this area where the egg was found, very close to where the egg was found. And out of the blue, he starts telling me this story. In the 1990s, they took 300 square meters of my land. You know, what? Who took part of your land? And he said, well, they wanted to build a road and a roundabout, so they took 300 square meters of my land. But when the machines were there digging, they found a massive structure, a massive stone structure that no one knows what it was. And wow, tell me more about it. So he was describing to me what I had read in this book that this guy had written about this the location for this potential city. He was telling me, so they stopped the works. They found this massive stone structure. No one know what it was. They told the archaeologists. The archaeologists first said, "Oh, maybe it's a Roman road." No, it's not a Roman road. No, we don't know what this is. So let's just bury it and continue the works. But he was managed to see it before they buried it, and he said the way it was built and the orientation of it really looked like a dam for water retention, kind of circular with a little slope. And he said that he grabbed a bit from the floor because it had cracks, because it was just a huge monolith. So the way he was seeing it, it felt like the stone was poured into the floor, because on the surface is smooth, and then when you lift it, the part that touches the ground has these, like, irregularities. I believe it was poured there, and no one knows what it is. And it's huge, and it goes all underground my land, but they just came and covered it, and they built the roundabout on top of it. Yeah. So this was in the 90s also. And in the descriptions of Plato that he got from Solon and from this Egyptian priest, this city, this very developed city, would have concentric circles around with water channels, and it was fed by the waters coming down from the mountain, and it was navigable until here, and then coming out. So now whenever I go to the top of the mountain and I'm looking down, I swear I'm seeing remains of this. I call, okay, it could be Atlantis or whatever name, but I'm just seeing it there. It became clear to me like the veil was lifted. And this, so this is the southwest of Portugal where I live here. And during the Younger Dryas, uh, this would be the coast of Portugal, and it sunk about 120 meters. So this is the line now, and all this area sunk. And there's something to add to the mystery. So in 1755, there was this massive earthquake. They call it the Lisbon earthquake, but the epicenter was actually here. And this is the point where the plates from Africa and Europe meet. So it's a fracture point, and there was this massive earthquake in 1755 that destroyed, leveled down all of Lisbon, and it was so strong that even the bells of the churches in Paris, they were ringing at that distance. And this area of the south of Portugal had very few number of inhabitants. There were mainly fishermen people living here. And the ones that survived, there are reports, and again, no one speaks about this, that so it was earthquake and tsunami, the waters receded, and when the waters receded, they were able to see ruins from stone buildings here in this area. And then big tsunami came again, and most of the people died, but some survived and were able to report this. So this is a mystery, and this was the coastline, and there's actually the river that comes here, like it's still showing up underwater, like where the river would have carved the lands. So yeah, so they say that the sunk of Atlantis in this area of the world happened about 11,600 years ago. And at that time, all this area actually sunk. But it would not be just this area. I mean, there would be Randall Carlson, like some of you might know of him, is doing a very in-depth research about the landmass in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where the Azores Islands are, that sank, and that would also explain the underwater pyramids and the Azores, and also Cuba and the Bimini roads. Well, there's lots underwater anyway. So this is this is very close by. Also, it's a 5,000-year-old monument, and it's called a toloi. It's the same like passage mounts like we find in Ireland, and for me it represents. This is from inside, so to go in you have to go through this tunnel, and then there are two chambers on each side. So this resembles like a womb with two ovaries, and then we go out. We go through this birth canal. So I've taken groups here, small groups, and do these rites of death and rebirth and initiation. Okay, so now we go back to Egypt. So this is in the temple of Karnak, close to Luxor. It's one of the biggest, largest complex temples. There are many temples in this complex. And this stone in particular is it's the solstice stone, because there's a big wall behind with a window that is aligned with the winter solstice, rising sun. So over the millennia, whenever the sun rises at the winter solstice, it lights up this rock. So it was very powerful just to be able to touch this rock and feel how many sunrise solstices have been witnessed and received the codes, right, from that very special moment in time. And this is in the temple of man in Luxor, and this is Sesheta. She's the lady of the measuring cord, that's also part of the invocation of the school, because she is the one that provides the right measures to create temples. Sacred geometry, and she has this. She always has this like 7-pointed star on top that seems to also be related with the deities. And ancient Egyptians or the ancient Kemetic people, they were very, very attuned into the cosmos and to replicating the skies on Earth. This is at the Temple of Dendera. This is a very tall ceiling at the entrance of the temple. It's totally a sky temple. This is the goddess Nut, where the word night comes from, or noche, or noite in Portuguese. Many words come from Egyptian words. I also found that out. So she swallows the sun at sunset, and then the sun travels through her body in the underworld, and then she gives birth to the sun on the next day. And the temples of Egypt, they all carved with reliefs and painted. It's just such intricate work. I mean, how did they do this? This is a very tall ceiling, and we can see here the constellations. I think I have a detail. Yeah. So Taurus is here, and Scorpio is here, and the bolt of stars. And by the way, the people talk about the gods from ancient Egypt, but as the ancient ones from this part of the world would see them, they would not be gods. They are the creative principles of nature. So they're representing the creative principles of nature. And there's 64 of them, like the hexagrams of the I Ching. So they, in all the temples, they have these small light entrances, and this one is actually in the middle, but sometimes they're in strange places, like one could be here or here, just tracking the lights. They were so devoted to tracking the light of the sun. And the light would come in and illuminate like different places inside where probably an altar was or whatever was there, we don't know. And I was just in awe looking at this because it's just sometimes it's just a tiny beam of light, right? It's a very tiny beam of light, but it's always pointing to something and tracking the light. Oh, and by the way, many of the temples were rebuilt and so were put down in and rebuilt over the centuries and the millennia, so they could keep in perfect alignment with the skies. And because of the precessional cycle and the changing of the skies, they would give themselves the trouble of putting them down and then back up again. And they're massive, massive stone buildings, so they would keep within alignment. So back to Portugal. This is an area of Portugal where it's still today. It's called the people from this place are called Egyptanians, and when the Romans got here about 2,000 years ago and they found the local indigenous people that had Celtic matrilineal traditions, they call this place Egyptania because they were practicing, I believe, no one told me this, but I believe they were practicing the rites from ancient Egypt. And the locals say there was an Isis temple there. And then the Romans built their Venus temple over the Isis temple. And then when the Knight Templars came in the 1100s, they built their tower over the Venus temple. And this is on the top of a very special mountain. It's really a magical place. I also took Daniel and Lane there in 2017. And there's a Knight Templars castle on top. And the Knight Templars, and I was talking with the head of the Order of the Druids the other day, and he was confirming to me that the original intention of the Knight Templars that had access to these manuscripts and maps from these very ancient times, they were the protectors of the ancient sacred places where the sacred feminine was worshipped. So they were keeping their places. They would build their fortresses there, and they would keep these places, and they would practice the rites of resurrection. And this is in the middle of the walls of the castle. This is also a very sacred place. This stone is big. It's quite big. It has the shape of a womb. is also an initiatic well that you can go down. It has stairs, so it represents the womb of the mother, and it's also an entrance into the underworld. And this area was called by the Romans Egyptania. So I mean, it's and so this is next to it. It's called they call it the Saint Michael's Necropolis because it has a lot of sarcophagus carved into the stone. But I believe these were not for burying the dead because they're kind of in a slope. So if you would put a lid of stone over it, it would just fall. And there are many of them, and I believe they were used for rites of death and resurrection, like they were practiced in ancient Egypt. And the fact that it's called Saint Michael, so the places that bear the name of Saint Michael are the places where the ley lines meet. So it's where the dragon lines meet, or the ley lines meet. So it's a very powerful place to do rites of initiation. And also there's all the Knight Templars places have the Chapel of Mary, that would be Mary Magdalene, and John the Baptist. So this place also has it. So I started also when I was in Ireland in 2016. I also started with the school to see this relationship between the territory where I come from and and Ireland and now Scotland. So I was sharing with a friend from Ireland, from Northern Ireland, about these insights, and the next day he finds this article in a local newspaper from Belfast about the Ballinahati woman, and it's saying this. So the Giant's Ring is a giant megalithic structure not far from where we live. So he found this on the newspaper. In 1855, the bones of a woman were found. She was subsequently named the Ballinahati woman. With modern scientific techniques, it has been discovered that this woman lived and farmed in the area 5,200 years ago. She had brown eyes and black hair and came from Southern Europe, most likely from Spain. Well, many people think that Portugal is the same as Spain, but it's not. It's very distinctive cultures. Her DNA ancestry traces back to the Middle East. So my theory is that these people came from the Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt area through the Mediterranean, in the island of Malta in the middle of the Mediterranean. We also found many interesting structures and megalithic structures and dolmens and all those things. And they came through the south coast of Portugal and the west coast and up through Brittany and into the British Islands and also up to Scandinavia. Because the megalithic monuments in Portugal are like, what, 2,000 years older than the ones we find in the British Islands. So they must have come from the south and brought all this wisdom. I also truly believe that the wisdom legacy of the of the Druids, of the Druidic culture, comes also from these mysteries from ancient Egypt. And then through researching in these books that tells about the legend of the foundation of Portugal, Ireland, and Scotland, which are based in an extensive bibliography both from Portugal, Spain, Ireland, and Scotland, there's a story of this character. His name was Galeto, and he came from Asia Minor or ancient Greece, no one knows. And Galeto could be his name, but it could also be a title, because it said that Galeto got set with the ways of his father, that maybe was turning into patriarchy. So he left his country and he went to Egypt. And for 7 years he stayed there with the priests and he was initiated into the mysteries. And by the way, the ancient name of Egypt, Kemet, it's where the name alchemy comes from, right? So he was initiated into the mysteries and he married this woman called Scotia that Daniel also spoke about. Yeah? Scotia, yeah. And and he brought her together with many people through the Mediterranean. And the place where they found they could settle was in the north of Portugal. So they entered the river Douro in the north of Portugal, and they established a settlement there. And that was actually had the name of Scotia. He gave this name of his wife to the settlement in Portugal. And to this day, this word koto or skoto still means a settlement or a piece of land. And so what's saying here is that, oh, and then he had this dream, right? He had this dream. So they brought the wisdom teachings from ancient Kemet and ancient Mesopotamia to the Iberia, and they settled there. And then he had this dream of an island to the north. So he came with his wife Scotia, and he found Ireland, and then eventually Scotland, and he gave the name of his wife to this place. And these people, they were matrilineal. The Celtics, this ancient culture in Portugal, they were matrilineal. So, and this attests to this, like, so the DNA of these women that lived 5,200 years ago in Northern Ireland had DNA from Iberia, so Portugal, Spain, but also from the Middle East. So they came from the Middle East, Iberia, and then up here. So it's the Atlantean culture, like Daniel was mentioning. So this is in Ireland. We were there. We were taken to this place in 2016. It's Passage Mounds, and this is Portugal, and we can see like how things relate. This was also with the school in 2017, and this is like at least 5,000 years old. Ireland, the dolmens that we were visiting there, and some of the dolmens in Portugal also. So we can see it's the same culture, but in Portugal they tend to be like 1,000, 2,000 years older. And I was just in awe seeing all these relationships. So this is a passage mount in Ireland, and we also have like this in Portugal. Again, this is close to where I live and where I take these small groups on the winter solstice to do the ceremonies, but actually it's aligned with the summer solstice, but it's still very magical. So yeah, if I was there, I would have been there at the solstice day. And then we have the folk tales. So the fairy people in Portugal are called the enchanted moras, which is a word that is also used here. It's quite interesting. And so the enchanted moras, they're these supernatural beings that they guard the sacred places, the water springs, the stone, the passage mounds, and they were the enchantresses. Like they would sing and speak the words into formation. So it was like they could, through their chanting, they could make the stones levitate and put them in place and create all these incredible megalithic monuments and precise alignments with the cosmos. And I mentioned this on the call that there's this hill range in central Portugal that's called the Star Hill Range, and like 70, there are like hundreds of dolmens and passage mounts, but like 70% of the dolmens around the Star Hill are aligned with the heliacal rise of Aldebaran. So yeah, people still call these places, they call it either the arcs or the houses of the Moors. And this is from a settlement from those times that are still standing. These people who live in round stone houses with thatched roofs. And this is from one of those settlements. So this is very thousand. It's called the beautiful stone, Pedra Formosa in Portuguese. So it was found in one of these settlements that is still standing, And according to folklore, it was brought by this place by a Moreira who carried it on her head while she was spinning with a spindle. And yeah, whatever it may represent, it's just a beautiful stone. This is another interesting possible connection to Scotland. In the most remote area of mainland Portugal, in the northeast, you have to go beyond these mountains. So this place is called Behind the Mountains. Uh, there's this very ancient tradition that the men use these skirts and they play the bagpipe and they do these dances with these sticks. And if you see their shawls, they're adorned with Celtic motifs and full of flowers. They also use a lot of flowers in their heads. And this is a beautiful dance that they do at the sound of the drums and the bagpipes. So, well, I don't know how old are the bagpipes, but it's just interesting that they also wear skirts and play it. And the original ones would have been done by the stomach of a sheep and then with tubes. And so it can also be an old instrument. We don't know how old, but there's this beautiful connection. It's like I see them as the ancient, like the remains of the ancient native people that had to protect their lands from the invaders. And truth is that when the Romans came 2,000 years ago, they just destroyed as much as they could. Yeah. So this is Kale. Kale is the ancient goddess of Portugal, which was the original name of the place. And she's the lady of the land. She's the one that gives shape to the land. And until the 16th century, the people from Portugal were called the Portugalese. And she's the goddess of the middle world that gives the shape to the land, and she also carries the stones, and she's also called the Old Moor, exactly like here. She carries the stones. And then the ancient people also had Hesperia, which means apple, or Iberi as the goddess of the overworld. I call it overworld because they would not call it exactly the celestial world, but it was of the goddess of the overall territory. And then Ophusa was the serpent goddess of the underworld. So Ophusa was also an ancient name for the territory that is now Portugal, because the people of the serpent were the druids, were the ones that knew how to find the energetic lines or the serpent lines or the dragon lines, and they were the ones who would erect the megaliths, and they knew they had this wisdom and this capacity to do it. So this is Iberia, Portugal, and Spain. And if Portugal is Portugal, is the port of Cale, so I guess this would be her face, right? So this is Lisbon, where I was born, and there's this face looking west into the Atlantic Ocean. She also has the pineal gland, and here these islands would be like something also to add up to. I don't know, but it's very mysterious that the way that it's shaped. And it's actually got shaped like this during the Younger Dryas because before the landmass would extend out into the ocean and got this face of a woman or a lioness. I don't know. So after Egypt, I went to Turkey, and I went to Göbekli Tepe. So Göbekli Tepe was buried 11,600 years ago, and it's considered to be the oldest astronomical place in the world. But this was the time that it was buried. I mean, it could be much older, right? And now they have this passage that goes around, and Daniel shared the video before with some of us, that only the top of this hill has been uncovered because this extends really, really underground through the landscape, but some powers that shouldn't be took over the place, and they're saying they're leaving it for the next generation. So you go there and you only get to see this, which is quite something, but for sure there's not so much more there. And another curiosity is that in ancient Armenian language, they call it Port Ozar, which means the umbilical cord of Osiris.
It's really interesting, the shapes of the columns there, and you called it port, also, however you say that, and those are like T-shaped.
Yes.
Well, there's a whole mystery in the Southwest about T-shaped doors.
Yeah, the T-shaped doors.
Mm-hmm.
But there are connections between the findings in Turkey and also in the Americas. And yes, the T shape is like the breath of God. Right.
And they're like, is
That's
this a portal thing? They couldn't understand why suddenly people started building T-shaped doors. It's interesting.
Yeah, I just feel it's a connection to the stars, like the pillars connects us to the celestial above, and they're all carved with the constellations and other drawings and animals, and these handbags that are called the handbags of the gods that show up in many cultures around the world, from Mesopotamia to the Americas. So these beings that would come from the sky and they're represented as birds here, they would carry the handbags. Quetzalcoatl also carried the handbag, and they would pass this into the pineal and bring in the seeds of knowledge, and that would have been how humanity would have received the codes for developing civilization. This shows up all over the world in different cultures. Okay, this is Ecuador, this is Mesopotamia, so yeah. So this is another place close to 45 minutes drive from Göbekli Tepe. It's Karan Tepe. It's older than Göbekli Tepe. I mean, it was buried, yeah, it's older. It's considered to be older. And this place is deserted. There was only one security guy there, and actually he came and sat by my side, and we were talking using the phones because he didn't speak English, so we were using the phones to translate. And there seems that some excavation activity is still going on, although no one was there when we were there. I was there with some friends. These pillars, they're phallus, they represent phallus. And then I believe from what I sense that these would be water pools. And there's this mysterious space here also. And then there's like this platform, like I could sense that this was once full of water. And maybe you would go inside and go through this rite of initiation into fertility, because these are all phallus. And there was a statue that it was discovered here also that is human size, and he also has this big phallus, but they removed it from there and they took it to the museum, so it's not here any longer. And this place, for me, despite the fact that there are all these phallus, it felt very feminine, like fertility, feminine. It actually felt to me like a place of birth, of giving birth. That was the feeling I had. I really enjoyed going here. Also, it was so much more free and to be close to than Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe has been completely hijacked. So another place I've been to in Turkey is I went to one of the underground cities, to Derinkuyu, and this is very mysterious. This was found in the 20th century by a man that was just doing some works on his house, and suddenly the floor fell, and he found this massive underground city that is like 8 levels deep, and at the bottom there's a waterbed. So according to what I read, there it has the capacity for 30,000 people to live in it, and we can go in. I went inside. It's open to the public, and they had schools, they had stables, they had living quarters, they had the cemetery, like, and then they have these very deep shafts for air to come in, but also to bring up water and also for communication. And this is such an intricate work, all excavated in the rocks. I mean, how did they do this? Because, I mean, how would they know where to excavate and in a way that this would not crumble? You know, it's so mysterious. And they said this was built like like 2000 something years ago to protect from the invaders. But it doesn't make any sense because if people would hide here, then the invaders would just lock them out and let them, whatever. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. This must be also so much older. And my feeling is that these were made when the surface of the earth was very hardcore and like during, for instance, the Younger Dryas. So they buried Göbekli Tepe and they'll build the city and they went underground. This is what I feel. But also, if maybe they knew something was going to happen, right? Because this must have taken a long time to do, or we don't know, or maybe we don't know. So and so this is inside of it, and the different levels, they can be sealed. They have these huge circle doors that roll and seal the different levels. And this is one of the shafts, and they have water channels and everything carved into the rock. They had even the tables, the very long table, and the seats all carved into the rock. And this is just one of them because there are many underground cities. This seems to be the biggest one here in Cuyo. Some more pictures from it and another sliding door. And now we go to Eastern Turkey, where some very recent and intriguing things have been found that totally put down the academia doctrine of history. And it's the Lake Van area in eastern Turkey that used to be ancient Armenia. And in 2017, they found these megalithic walls at a depth of more than 100 feet or 30 meters under this body of water at Lake Van in eastern Turkey. And according to geology studies, the last time this area was at the surface points to 20,000 years ago. And these are like perfect megalithic walls. Like they're really, really sophisticated constructions. So this gives us a time frame. I mean, at least 20,000 years ago. So it's older than Göbekli Tepe, right? And there's this, and this is Lake Van. It's actually a salt lake, and it doesn't have any outlet. And it stands next to Mount Ararat, which is a very mystical mountain, also that shows up in the stories from the Bible. And this is Van, and I definitely want to go there. And there's this researcher from the States. His name is Matthew Lacroix, and he's been doing this amazing research on ancient Sumer cuneiform tablets for the last 10 years. He's just been studying all of them. So we have that underwater structure that we know the last time it had been at the surface would have been at least 20,000 years ago. And then there are a lot of megalithic structures around the lakes that display the same type of construction. So they must be also at least 20,000 years old. And these places are all abandoned, with one exception. They're all abandoned. This was found in 1958 and abandoned and never excavated. And like this, there are many other places around the lake. This is basalt. Again, one of the hardest stones. And the edges of these stones, they're so sharp that you can still cut your finger as you pass your finger there. It's incredible. It's no explanation. But at the same time, so this is Steppe, and they would build with hard basalts and andesite. They had this high level of sophistication, and their craftsmanship required either very advanced tools or a very powerful mind to shape things into forms. Right? Conventional archaeologists, they say this is no more than 3,000 years old, and it comes from the Urartian civilization. But there are different levels into these. So we have the basalt stones, that are carved to perfection. Then we have these limestone stones that are also very precisely carved, but this would be from a later period, from people that got here and put these ones together. They put them on top of others because some stones would be missing. And then there is a third layer that is just mud and mud bricks with mortar that is so much less sophisticated, and that would be the Urartian civilization. But they put everything on the same time frame, and it's so completely different. And they have writings, and this is the translation of what's there. So High Chaldi, and Chaldi could also be Haldi, and it's Enlil, and also has that name from the mythologies Enlil and Enki, the ancient Sumer gods, the children of Anu or Anna, that is the great goddess, and that gave rise to the Anuna or the Anunnaki. But Anunnaki is a later patriarchal name. The original name would be Anuna. So this is Haldi speaking in the first person, and he's just shaping the land into water management, passing the ways how to grow food, agriculture, how to build. So it's like the seeds of civilization being passed down. So according to what's been found in these ancient cuneiform tablets, there would be great 5 cities in ancient Mesopotamia, pre-Diluvian cities. The first one would have been Eridu, and the last one would have been Shurupak. And Shurupak is currently located in Iraq, in an area called Farah. And in the 1930s, the Penn Museum from Philadelphia, they put up this really big expedition, and they went into the desert, to this region that is just desert nowadays. And they start excavating, and until then, Shurupak was a mythical city. But somehow, through information that they had gathered, they knew exactly where to go and excavate. So and there were terrible sandstorms. The conditions were really, really hard, but they prevailed. So they started the excavations, and they found 2 layers of an ancient city. But it would have been from the Urartian times, like they had clay pots, nothing very meaningful. And at that point, when they reached like 7 feet, many of the crew just, okay, this is it, we give up, we go back. But some stayed, no, we have to go deeper. So they dug 35 meters, 35 feet through a thick mud layer that had absolutely no human remains whatsoever. It was just mud, like with the egg that was found in the south of Portugal. And then they find something. Then they find this very developed, sophisticated type of construction, and they find cuneiform tablets with the name Shurupak in it. So they found it. But again, in the reports that are there from the Penn Museum, they tried to fit it into the span of 5,000 to 6,000 years, because things could not be older than that. So, and they also found ancient Sumerian kings lists, and in these lists, there are thousands and thousands of cuneiform tablets that have been found in different places in ancient Mesopotamia. And these kings, they would rule for thousands of years. So Shurupak was the last of these big ancient Mesopotamian cities, and the last king of Shurupak was this figure called Zayasudra, that then became the biblical Noah. So the Bible also went into this story. But his name was Zayasudra Pistis something, I can't remember. Which also gave, I think it's the same figure as Zarathustra. So he was Zayasudra, or the biblical Noah, was the last king priest of the last of the 5 great Mesopotamian cities from pre-Diluvian times that was Shuruppak in the area of Faras, Iraq. And what is also said in this, ancient cuneiform tablets is that these kings, they would live like eternal lives. They could rule for thousands of years and live eternal lives. Something started to be corrupted. That's how they're telling in these stories, and I'm just trying to make it very brief. And then one of the gods, the brother of Aldi, Henki, just wanted to send a deluge and wipe out everything, which it did. But then Enlil, which Noah was a son of, so Noah was a children of the gods, and he was still immortal, Zayasudra. And he was warned by one of these gods from the sky, and he was told to build this bark, this boat ark made of cedar, because cedar is a wood that does not rot, and sealed with bitumen, and take his family there and wherever he could. Not like the Bible says, like to animals of any kind, but this is written in the ancient scripts that were found buried like from really long ago, and that mud wall would attest to the Diluvian times where everything was just covered in mud. And he did it, and they survived. So he took his family, and they landed in Mount Ararat, close to Lake Van. And Zayasudra and Noah had three children, so they survived. And then, so from that moment on, the king's list, both from ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, the kings start to have a smaller and smaller and smaller lifespan until they come to the current one that we now have. So Zayasudra had 3 children. Sometimes the name diverged a bit. It could be Sam or Sham, and Japhet, and Cam or Shem. And there are also different opinions or information, but that he had 3 sons that give origin to 3 blood lineages. So they were these carriers, and this is a common information that we find from different sources. And so Sem would have gone to Asia carrying the seeds of civilization, also the Semitic people, and he would have taken the knowledge to the Indus Valley and then further on to Asia. Cam would have gone to Africa, and might be the word where Kemet comes from, which means actually black soil. It's the black soil of fertility where we can grow food and all. And the other one, Japhet, would have gone to Europe and possibly up north. Maybe it's where the symbol of the fleur de lis comes from, like 3 bloodlines that carried the seeds of civilization. We don't know. These are all suppositions, but it kind of makes sense. And when the Knight Templars, it is said that they actually found these ancient manuscripts, and they had access to this knowledge from surviving tablets from old times, and they adopted this symbol. So I guess they were into something. So this is Matthew's lateral research, and in the Armenian history. So Noah Zayasudra, he had 3 sons, but we're going to focus more on Japhet here, because that's where he found the connection. So Japhet, Gomer, Tiras, and then Haik. So King Haik was the founder of the Armenian nation back in time. So he was able to find this relation from a line that comes directly from Zayasudra Noah. So going back to the area around Lake Van, so Kavu Steppe in Armenian language is also called Aikabert, after the legendary founder King Haik of the Armenian nation, which comes from it's a bloodline descendant of Japhet that comes from Zayasudra. This is according to Matthew's research, and he's really doing an incredible work. So there are other places around Lake Van that display the same type of very precise cut monoliths of basalt. This was also found in 1958. It's also abandoned, never excavated. They just leave these places to be abandoned and to be looted because they don't know these places to be known, right? Because they mess up with the paradigm that they're still trying to impose. So this is a box that was found in Kefkalezi, one of these sites that has these carvings, and this is a huge box. It depicts the god Haldi, the one that was writing in the first person in Kava Stepi, and it's shown also with wings and passing the seeds of knowledge and the seed of the tree of life. And he also has a cup in his hand, so it's like giving the sacrament. And it has the lions depicted like this powerful creative beings. And also it has some cuneiform writings into it, and then it has the drawing of these tractors that speaks about the free world and that we can find in other places of the world like Saudi Arabia and Peru, places all around the world that have the same type of depiction. And actually, the Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, it's also at a height and close to a very high mountain, so it has some similarities with Lake Van in Turkey. And this is the most incredible places that they found in eastern Turkey. It's the Ayanis Kalezi. By the way, the word Kale, I found that it's an ancient word from ancient Armenia that means stone, which makes all the sense, right? You can see the sophistication, the level of sophistication that these blocks have. I mean, they've been here for many, many millennia, and they're carved to perfection. And this is the one place that is archaeological work is going on and it's being well done according to Matthew. And then you have the symbol in the walls, and look at this. It's the cross. This cross is so familiar up to these days, and this must be at least 20,000 years old. And this was the cross that the Knight Templars also adopted. So we see the hourglass, like counting the time, and the sun and the directions, and passing their legacy, and the grief as a protector and the guardian. This is the Knight Templars cross, as they used to use it. And this is in Egypt, in the Isis temple, in Philae temple. And the Knight Templars, they were also there. And from all the temples, they chose the temple of Isis, the great goddess, the sacred feminine, to also create their altar there and leave their mark. So back to Ayanis. So this would have embedded pieces into them, and they're really carved into perfection, and it's all being restored. And this is it. Ancient futures, humanity rebirth, rites of passage. This is the end of the presentation. And it's like the goddess is being rebirthed by us. That's how it feels like, and we're here to spread the word. So gratitude. Thank you.